This is when the new government came into place in 2021. Zambia, yes, was in a debt distressed position some 4 years ago. Difficult situation in terms of the debt position was inherited. And so we put in place a restructuring program which required us under the G20.
One of the most surprising economy headlines in Africa, according to Zambia's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mulambo Haimbe. The country has now cleared all of its debts with the International Monetary Fund, which is the IMF. He made the statement while speaking to TRT Africa during the Antalya Diplomacy Forum in Turkey, which ended on April 19th. On X, he firmly said, for many Zambians, this is more than just an economic update. It is a symbol of recovery because only a few years ago, Zambia was facing one of the worst debt crises in its modern history. So, how did Zambia move from near collapse to clearing IMF debt, and what does this mean for the future of the country? Well, welcome to the deep dive on streetwise politics. Let's go straight into the details as I break all this down for you. The Zambia debt crisis began years ago, back in 2021. Zambia's total public debt stock had risen to around $26.29 billion. That number represented years of heavy borrowing, budget pressure, weak revenues, and economic shocks. The country has already become the first African nation during the pandemic era to default on a sovereignty debt payment. That moment damaged investor confidence, weakening the currency, raised inflation, and made everyday life harder than ordinary citizens. But fuel prices rose, food costs increased, jobs becomes uncertain, and many people feared Zambians was heading deeper into crisis. Hakainde Hichilema turning the point. Then came a political shift. President Hakainde Hichilema entered office promising discipline, reform, and international engagement. His government began working with creditors, international lenders, and development partners to stabilize the economy. One of the biggest steps was Zambia's program with the IMF under the Extended Credit Facility. In January 2026, the IMF announced completion of the sixth and the final review of the Zambian's 38-month program, releasing another tranche of financing and praising reform already underway. The IMF noted that Zambia had reduced microeconomic imbalance, advanced debt restructuring, improved fiscal discipline, protected some social spending, created a stronger growth outlook. That was a major vote of confidence. And now, if IMF or if Minister Haimbe statement is fully reflected in official balance, Zambia has moved even further by clearing IMF obligation. Why this matters? Many people misunderstand the sovereignty debt or the sovereign debt. Not all debt is bad. Countries borrow to build roads, power plants, schools, and hospitals. But when debt becomes too expensive or poorly managed, it can trap nations. So clearly, IMF debt sends several important messages. Now, number one on the Zambia is regaining credibility. Investors and lenders watch how countries manage obligations. If Zambia clears IMF debt, it signals seriousness, responsibility, and a stronger financial management that can lower borrowing costs in the future. The number two on the list is more budget space. Less debt pressure can allow government resources to go toward healthcare, education, agriculture, infrastructure, energy, projects. Now let's look at a stronger regional reputation. Zambia may now be seen as a model for debt recovery in Africa, especially for countries struggling with rising debt burdens. But the journey is not over. Within this progress, Zambia still faces major challenges. The IMF itself said Zambia remains at a high risk of debt distress. Although conditions are improving, public debt ratios are projected to decline over time if reforms continue. That means success depends on what happens next. Can Zambia maintain disciplines? Can it grow export beyond copper? Can it create jobs for young people? Can it solve electricity shortages? Can it industrialize? Those are the real next battles. The U.S. health funding dispute. Minister Haimbe also revealed Zambia is still negotiating with the United States over a controversial health funding package. That issue could be important because health financing affects hospitals, medicines access, and public services. If negotiations succeed, Zambia could strengthen healthcare delivery. If not, it may need to find alternative partners or domestic solutions. While Zambia's economy could rise further, there are reasons for optimism. The IMF projected Zambia's economy to continue growing in 2026, helped by mining, electricity recovery, services, and agriculture. And Zambia remains one of Africa's key copper producers as the world demands more copper for electric vehicles, batteries, and renewable energy. Zambia has a strategic opportunity. If managed well, copper revenue could fund development. If mismanaged, old debt problems could return. The final thought of this Zambia's story is becoming one of Africa's most important comeback stories. From default fears to restructuring to IMF program completion and now claims of cleared IMF debt. This is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of a new test. Can Zambia turn financial recovery into real prosperity for ordinary citizens? That is the question the world is now watching. What do you think? Will Zambia become one of Africa's next economic success stories? Comment below. And if you enjoy this deep dive, please do well to subscribe, like, and also stay informed with us for more stories on African political aspects and African businesses as well. Here we say bye-bye.